This
for
conference
your
will
time
now be
today.
recorded.
Thank you very much for your time today. I really wanted to do this webinar. I'm the marketing manager for the Concierge Travel Group. I'm just going to try and click through here. I'm the marketing manager for the Concierge Travel Group, of which Elegant Resorts and Villas and Alchemy are both brands that I do the marketing for. And when the coronavirus hit, I thought it was a good opportunity to transfer the knowledge that I have from working with the Alchemy brand to all of our agents who usually sit under our Elegant Resorts and Villas brand. So today I'm going to be doing this this webinar from the perspective of Alchemy, but the companies are very closely aligned. So I've been working in luxury marketing for about 11 years now, and I've been to many far-flung places around the world on all 7 continents. And when I started working with Alchemy about 4 years ago, it was the first time that I really focused on Australia and learning about everything that is on offer in Australia. And having travelled the world, I really feel very passionate about what we've got on offer here in Australia. I think we've got some really fantastic world-class experiences. And so when I talk about these experiences to you, it really is with that knowledge of what else is around in the world. So just a little bit about Alchemy. So we've been around for about 19 years now, since 2001. We were formerly called Wilderness Australia, and so we were built on this kind of thinking of bringing that African experience to Australia. So it's very much about wilderness experiences, safari-style experiences, and we rebranded in 2015 to Alchemy just to reflect that we do the urban, the cities as well, and other experiences beyond just the safari-style experiences. And the reason I wanted to talk to you today is really because the team at Alchemy have such an in-depth knowledge of Australia, and given what's going on at the moment, our borders are closed. It's really going to be a focus on the domestic market and domestic travel for the foreseeable future. Hopefully we'll open up soon enough, because I can't wait to go travelling again, but for now it's going to be domestic, in which case you can really use Alchemy's knowledge to create itineraries for your clients around Australia. So our knowledge is based on basically us going out and testing and trying everything that's on offer, that we offer. So we handpick our suppliers, we test out the guides, the accommodation, so we know what rooms are the best rooms to be in, and all the experiences. So if we are putting something in an itinerary for you, there's a good reason for it. And we've been able to open up our inbound rates to domestic agents. So all of you now have the opportunity to access our great rates. And so really today, I just want to kind of inspire you about all the amazing experiences and places that Australia has to discover, and to treat Australia kind of how you would treat Africa or South America. So really looking at using a DMC like Alchemy to build the itinerary with world-class experiences and the great guides. And it's really about that crafting of an experience. What I'm not going to take you through today is anything that I think your clients can easily book online and have the confidence to book online themselves. So obviously, most of your clients will be Australian. They're very comfortable and think they know Australia well enough to do things themselves. What I want to sort of have you take away today is there's a lot more that they probably have no idea about. And it's really about piecing that together in a fantastic itinerary that builds and crescendos in the right order. So just to start off, really, I just want to remind you of how amazing Australia is. In the Flinders Ranges in South Australia, you'll find the oldest fossil evidence of life. You head over to the west coast of Australia around Shark Bay, and you'll find the stromatolites. They're the oldest life forms on Earth. They're living fossils, something that David Attenborough has spoken about in his series. And really today, I'm just going to be showing you things that that are akin to maybe sending your clients to a safari or to Africa or some unknown place like that. We've got the world's biggest dinosaur prints. There's actually 21 different types up above Broome. And, you know, obviously Australia's got the world's oldest living culture. So there's all of that to discover as well, all the artwork and the Aboriginal culture. We've got the oldest man on Earth discovered, Mungo Man. If you fly over Central Australia, you'll see the Maori Man. And we've got the oldest living, the oldest aquaculture site, Budge Bim, which was just made a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2019. And again, another side of Australia's history that, you know, many people don't know about is our Dutch history and the Batavia ship that shipwrecked off the coast of Western Australia and the history around that. And so all of these things I'm showing you, we can build itineraries around it if your clients have a special interest in them. We've also got some of the most interesting and unique wildlife in the world. So even though you might, you know, think kangaroos are pretty boring, if you've got a really good guide, you'll actually discover that, in fact, they're fascinating. And really, I guess what I want to get across to you is that bungle bungles in the Kimberley, they were only just discovered in 1984 by white men. So that's only what 40 something years ago. So just think about how much more there is in Australia that you don't actually know about or that hasn't been discovered yet. You look at a road map of Australia where these red lines are, and that's kind of it. That's all. We kind of really only know those bits that are around the red lines. And so discovering anything sort of further away from our roads really takes a bit of effort, or it takes a small plane or a helicopter to get there. And that's what we can bring to your clients, taking them into those places that aren't as well known, and that they can really do things and see things that not very many people ever have seen before. So one of the, with that comes the luxury of all these vast landscapes with very few people, and especially at a time with coronavirus, it's really important to try and self-distance, and so going to a remote location is perfect for that. Up in the top end, you've only got an average of 0.16 people per square kilometre. And you compare that to New York, there's 19,000 people per square kilometre. So really, you know, Australia's luxury is in that vast landscapes with very few people. But the key to unlocking that is our great guides. And this is the same, again, you know, any trip to Africa or to South America or Asia, I know that you work with good guides to really highlight a place. And that's what we can help you with here in Australia. We've been working with some of these guides for close to 20 years now. We've chosen them because they're great characters, great storytellers. They can really read your clients. So, you know, they can change an itinerary on the fly if they need to. Their knowledge of land and the culture, wildlife, and their access to places and to people that perhaps a normal tour guide wouldn't be able to get them. And so that's why we choose them. And so when we build an itinerary for you in Australia, we rely on our guides very heavily to unlock the amazing places. So I'm just going to quickly go through some wildlife experiences. You know, and as I said, you know, most people would think, oh, kangaroos, not that exciting. But really, once you spend time with a good guide who really interprets the land, that brings to life the wildlife in a way that, you know, you expect when you go to Africa, but probably you're a bit blasé about it in Australia. I'm just starting with this image of Arkaba Conservancy, just to highlight that you can have those incredible experiences in Australia that are those kind of safari style, whether you're out in a jeep going wildlife spotting, or you're doing a Kelly sundowner, or having a nice glass of wine as the sun sets and there's kangaroos hopping by. It's all about that that guided African style experience that you can bring to Australia with your clients. Another example is Bamaroo Plains, which is up in the top end near Kakadu, and it's likened to the Okavango Delta. It's on the floodplains, and you go out and you do safari-style experiences in an airboat or on a safari game drive, and you're amongst lots and lots of wildlife. You sleep in these incredible wilderness tents where on 3 sides you've got mesh, and you just feel like you're immersed in nature. And for me, one of the things that you don't think about with Australia typically, but you might if you're going to Africa, is you go wildlife tracking. So last time I went to Africa, we were out looking for cheetahs, and we spent a whole morning looking for the cheetah prints and then eventually finding them. It's absolutely just as interesting to do this with Australian animals and learn their footprints, and go looking for kangaroos or echidnas, working out what sort of habitat they live in and tracking them. And this again is where the guides can really interpret the land and make it really interesting for you. We can organise conservation activities just the same way that that you might in Africa or South America. So this is my favourite Australian animal. It's actually a yellow-footed rock wallaby. They're endangered, and you'll find them in the Flinders Ranges of South Australia. So I spent 4 days with an ecologist going around and monitoring their habitat and trying to track them and looking for food that they ate. So if you've got clients with children or just a passion for conservation, we can organise activities like that. It could be perhaps putting a tracking collar on a feral cat and seeing where they go. Certainly with the bushfires now, there's lots of activities to help regenerate the land for the koalas and whatnot, so quolls, all sorts of Australian animals. So there's that conservation side that we can add to an experience here. And then you've got experiences that you might not know exist in Australia. So for example, the killer whales or the orcas that come every year to the southwest of Western Australia. So you can go out and it's like going on an expedition trip in Antarctica. So you spend the whole day looking for the orcas. When I went out, we saw a couple of pods of orcas. We saw about 100 pilot whales, seals, dolphins, and it was very much that that Antarctica experience. But you got it just here in Australia. There's a filmmaker called David Riggs. He was actually creating a documentary about great white sharks, and he discovered this marine hotspot. So it's like going to Antarctica, but without the ice. And again, also similar, you don't need to go to Antarctica to see the seals. You've got plenty of seals at Kangaroo Island and other places around Australia, such as the Eyre Peninsula, where you can go swimming with the sea lions and they come up and play with you. You can also do this off Jarvis Bay down in New South Wales. And you probably know about swimming with the whale sharks. These are off Ningaloo Reef. They're coming by about now. I was thinking about how to do this presentation for you and whether to put it in order of what parts of Australia I thought would be available when we opened up out of lockdown. If we open up in around July and can go travelling again, this might be a really good option for your clients to send them over to Ningaloo Reef. So they've got the swimming with the whale sharks. At about the same time, the humpback whales will be coming past. There's also the manta rays. You've got dolphins. You've got 7 types of sea turtles. I think there's something like 250 species of fish and whatnot. So that could be an option for your clients to head over to Exmouth and Ningaloo Reef. And there's a beautiful wilderness safari camp there called Salsalis that they could stay at as well if it opens up. And this is one of the problems we have for this year is what accommodation is going to open up. For those of you who don't know much about Ningaloo Reef, it's different to the Great Barrier Reef in that it's much, much closer to the shore. So instead, with the Great Barrier Reef, it might take an hour and a half to get out there by boat. You can actually just swim to, you can swim off the shore and you're on Ningaloo Reef. So there's a huge difference there, and just as beautiful and just as pristine. So in terms of some other experiences around the Eyre Peninsula, and I'm trying to show you things that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. So around the Eyre Peninsula, which is about a 45-minute flight from Adelaide, or about a 7-hour drive to get there, you've got these this amazing coastline and these coastal safaris that you can do. You've got guides there that will go out into the water and pull out some fresh lobster and cook it up on the beach for your clients. He can take them heli fishing. You've got fantastic wildlife there, the emus, and just to the back you've got the Gawler Ranges, where you can go and spot wildlife there, all sorts of koalas and excuse me, all sorts of koalas and the roos and the macropods. Oops. Wait. Sorry, my computer's not working. Right, there we go. Oops, go back here. So another fantastic experience, probably one of my favourite day tours, I would say, in Australia is this Outback Floatplane experience from Darwin. So we took off in a seaplane, and 20 minutes later you are landing on this lagoon here, and you really feel like you're in the Amazon or a part of Africa, or maybe Borneo. You've just on this beautiful flat lagoon, you've got the birds chirping everywhere. And what you do is you pull up at a pontoon, and at the pontoon they'll cook you breakfast or lunch, and then you take off in an airboat and you go on a safari looking for crocodiles. And you meander down the channels of the lagoon, spot a few crocs, come back, there'll be a helicopter waiting for you. You'll head up in the helicopter and do a bit of a scenic flight, look at the termite mounds, and then come back to the pontoon, and then you can head back to Darwin. And that's all done in sort of a 4-hour period, a half a day. And so, having these kind of experiences can, your clients don't have to go away for a long period of time. So if they even just want a short break before they have to go back to work when we all come out of this, that might be a really nice option. Also up in around the top end in Darwin, we can send your clients out with the Outback Wrangler. I'm not sure if you have heard of Matt Wright. He's a bit of a Steve Irwin style celebrity who he rescues or relocates crocodiles, as well as doing, mustering at cattle stations and whatnot. And he's a bit of a character. So he flies his own helicopter, and he can do some pretty crazy things. I've heard some interesting stories about him dropping his phone in amongst a whole bunch of feral pigs and forgetting about it, and then having to hop back in his helicopter and finding that exact spot and finding his phone again. But he can really add another dimension to sort of an outback style trip for your clients. If you've got clients who are looking for something even more adventurous, we've organised heli camping amongst just basically in the middle of nowhere. One of the times we did it was for a client who had a river named after their grandparents. They were vegan, so we can organise, the vegan food, the guide, taking them around. They went fishing, swimming in the top of waterfalls. These particular clients slept in swags, but we could set up normal tents for them as well. So we can get quite remote if your clients are after something like that. Back up in the top end again, so the Tiwi Islands are off Darwin. So again, very much an adventurous kind of experience. The Indigenous culture there are very, very strong and quite a little bit different to the normal Aboriginal culture. So if you've got clients who are interested in collecting art or just seeing a different side of Aboriginal culture here in Australia, we can helicopter them there or seaplane them there, and they can go and meet some of the locals there. Again, we could do it with Matt Wright, who's that Outback Wrangler, or we could do it with another guy. Another way to see Australia, something a little bit different. This is above Ningaloo Reef. So, just looking at different ways to arrive at properties. This one we've microlighted our clients into a luxury property down on Ningaloo Reef. And, if they want to see the Kimberley in style, we can organise a heli safari between different luxury lodges around Australia. Lake Gardner is in South Australia, so you don't necessarily need to go to the salt flats of Bolivia to have that kind of salt lake experience. Every March, typically, they do a land speed record there. They have a big race, so we've got a contact that can fly your clients inland on the lake. It's a salt lake, and watch the race as it happens. Or perhaps if you've got clients with a really big budget and want to do something a little bit different, we could organise for them to do a race themselves and get some of those land speed record cars on the lake for them to sort of have a race against each other. For clients who are interested in golf and want something a little bit different, down on King Island is one of the world's top golf courses, and then Tasmania's got a whole bunch of other fantastic golf courses. So perhaps out of Melbourne or Sydney, we can fly your clients by private jet, land on King Island, and within 30 minutes of landing, they are teeing off on one of the world's best golf courses. And of course, on King Island, you've got some of the best produce in Australia. You've got that wonderful cheese, you've got beef, and you've got fresh seafood straight from the sea. In Tasmania, you may or may not be aware, it's one of the up-and-coming mountain biking areas of Australia. So again, a beautiful sort of wild wilderness experience, riding around in nature, and you can sleep in these kind of little luxury pods up here, eco pods. Just something a little bit different down in Tasmania. Back up to the top end, if you've got clients who are very interested in the Indigenous culture, Arnhem Land is a really good place to head. Obviously, I'm sure you know you need a permit to get into Arnhem Land, and really we would only advise to go with a really good guide because they've got the contacts there, they know the places and the people of where to go. So there's not a lot of accommodation options in Arnhem Land, and usually it's kind of a tented camp style. And so what we can do is either organise for your clients to go on a sort of a safari style from Darwin all the way into Arnhem Land, or perhaps we can fly them in and meet the guides in Arnhem Land so that they don't have to spend as much time in a car. But they can spend sort of a 5 or 6 day trip to Arnhem Land, seeing some of the most remote places in Australia. And then just quickly on food and wine before I finish up. So up in the top, you've got, this is the Kimberley Coastal Camp. It's really well known for its fishing, but you've also got in the hinterland here, you've got fantastic Aboriginal art, and you've also got wildlife there. You can only get there by boat or by heli or by seaplane. So it's very, very remote. It's one of the most exclusive places in Australia for that reason. And it's all inclusive, and you can go and catch as much fish as you want, and they'll cook it up for you on the barbecue. We've also got great guides who can take your clients spearfishing or mud crabbing. So for a different Aboriginal experience, I would highly recommend this. Again, also if your clients are interested in bush foods, and a lot of Australians probably haven't really done too many Aboriginal bush foods experiences, and usually think it's something for the tourists to do, but I can highly recommend it. I've done a few now, and I just think they're fantastic. And then again, for something a little bit different, we can organise for your clients to go heli fishing to some remote areas that you need permits for. We've heard of someone discovering a new species of fish just because that part of Australia is so remote, and you know, people don't usually go there, and we can organise for them to stop at a pub on the way home. For clients who just want to do something a little bit different, you know, out of Victoria, and you know, maybe even Melburnians would be interested in this, is to see the Great Ocean Road by small plane. So you take off from Essendon Airport and you land in the Coonawarra at a winery and do a wine blending session and some wine tasting. You'll hop back in the private jet and you'll land on a Wagyu beef farm, and you have a 4-course meal, Wagyu beef cooked up for you in front by the chef, and then taken on a tour of the beef farm, and then you do a low-level flight back over the Great Ocean Road and the 12 Apostles back to Melbourne. So, you know, this could be something incorporated on a trip for Sydney-siders who perhaps want a city-based experience in Melbourne, or even just for Melbourne people who would like to do something a little bit different. Another different dining experience. So this is called Mount Connor. For those of you, obviously you know Uluru. Mount Connor is not too far away, and the difference being you can actually land a helicopter on top of Mount Connor. So perhaps if you've got clients who are, I don't know, celebrating a 60th birthday or something like that, and they've always wanted to go to Uluru, this might be a nice little addition to put into their trip. So we'll land a helicopter on top, set up a nice picnic table with white tablecloth, and they can have a beautiful lunch there, something really different to what they might expect. Jumping around down to Tasmania. So Tasmania is probably quite a good option for Australian clients coming out of the lockdown. So, you know, obviously most of you know Tasmania pretty well, but there's some fantastic experiences that can be had there, some real ocean to plate safari style experiences with your guide plucking some abalone straight out of the water for you, or some oysters. Bruny Island is fantastic, and then you've got the southern edge of Tasmania as well, where you've got fantastic sea safaris. You've also got the southwestern area of Tasmania where, you know, there's not really much there at all. There's just beautiful wilderness. There's not a lot of accommodation there, but we can organise for your clients to spend time on a luxury vessel and explore that area that way. So there's plenty of kind of wilderness nature experiences down in Tasmania. And then finally, I'm going to end on one of my favourite experiences here. It's about 90 minutes south of Sydney in the Southern Highlands, and it's canoes, canapes and champagne. And essentially it's these Canadian style canoes that are tethered together with a table, and you've got ice buckets and fantastic fresh produce and local wines, and you paddle out into the middle of a sunken forest, and you spend the afternoon or the morning just in nature having some great food and great wine. And again, that could be a really nice kind of self-drive option for people in Sydney, or perhaps coming up from Melbourne without having to get into an aeroplane, but really having a nice kind of wilderness experience as well. So that's kind of it. I found it very difficult to break down all my experiences that we have in Australia. Normally my presentation has about 200 different slides, so I've tried to just rush it down and just give you a quick taste of the sort of things that we can do for your clients. I personally think the opportunity in this domestic market coming up for us is really those experiences that are more safari style. I don't expect they'll really need to come to you to book, you know, a Great Barrier Reef island or whatnot. So really it's about how can we add value for you and help your clients understand what Australia has to offer that they probably aren't really thinking about at the moment. So I hope that's a little bit useful. I can obviously do a lot more in-depth webinars for you if you want to learn a lot more about the Kimberley region or the top end or South Australia, for example, what I might do is send a follow-up email, and if you want to book yourself in for one of those, because this has really just been a quick overview about what we can offer you. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed it, and if anyone's got any questions, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Nicola. I'm Peter.
Hello.
Hi. I'd be interested in future if you did other webinars on the Kimberleys and the top end.
Yep.
That'd be, I reckon, a market that I could harness.
Okay. Excellent. All right. I'll send out a follow-up email with a link so that you can register, or we could do a one-on-one. And I obviously haven't taken you through any accommodation, so I can also talk to you all about accommodation as well. There's the luxury lodges of Australia, which I imagine most of you are probably across, but there's also a whole lot of other fantastic, more boutique accommodation that you may or may not be aware of. I just saw a question from Katie. The killer whales are down in the southwest of Western Australia. So it's an area called Bremer Canyon, which is where they're found, or Bremer Bay. So the issue there for sort of the luxury market is that there's not a lot of accommodation down there. So it's really how do we incorporate that into an itinerary for you, but there's options of, you know, staying on a nice vessel or helicoptering in from Albany or something like that. Thank you. Do you have a list of who is open this year? So in terms of what's open at the moment, there's yes, I do have a list. It changes so often though. You know, everything's changing daily. A lot of the stuff, from what I can tell, is closed until May 31 or indefinitely at the moment. There are some of the luxury lodges are closed for the season. So if you think about some of what I've shown you in the top end and the Kimberley, the season really there is sort of April till about October, and I would expect that we'll be sort of coming out of this maybe around, well, I'm hoping we'll be out of lockdown by the end of July, but in terms of a lot of those tourism businesses up in that end, it's probably not worth their while opening up just for about 2 months. But definitely sort of Tasmania, South Australia, all the East Coast, and Perth, I think all of that will be open up for everything from sort of September. I'm just trying to see some more questions. I think that's about it. So yeah, I'll send you all a follow-up email. We can do a webinar on the Kimberley, the top end, the luxury lodges, and anything else that you would like to know about. Okay. Thank you. It's hard doing a webinar with no one talking. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicola. Most interesting. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.